Oh
this
God.
episode.
Yes.
So I am. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's Countercast. I'm Matthew. This is Andrea, and we think that life shouldn't just be about work, and we think magic is a good way to spend your time. But
It is.
It is.
And
Amen.
today's question is magic art? And
I love
if
that
it
we're
is,
doing finger guns. This is great that we're doing finger guns. You can't see it in the audio, but just imagine lots of finger guns. Yeah, I think it is. I think it's. I'm pretty comfortable with it being art. I'm pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just.
And that's the podcast, everybody.
We did it! Congratulations! Fastest podcast episode ever.
So I guess one of the things you mentioned at the beginning was like talk about what brought us into magic, and a good piece of that is the fact that it's so beautiful and it manifests in so many different forms of art. So not just the cards, because that's a given, but also the story. And the story is what sucked me in at first and what kind of kept me going.
Yeah, talk about that a little bit, because like you're a newer player, right? Like I've been playing since like 2000, I don't know, 1 or 2 or something early. I taught my little brothers magic, got them really high SAT scores. So if you're looking to cheat the SATs or get good at them, teach your 8-year-old brother Magic the Gathering. But you just got into it like a couple of years ago. What was that like? How was that?
So I started playing, when did Exelon come out? 2017, I think it was. Our buddy Scott gave us a Goblins versus Merfolk deck.
Two wrong choices. Interesting.
That is an argument for a different day. And I can tell you why Goblins is wrong and why Merfolk is very, very right.
Wow.
Yes, I'm with the professor on this one.
Wow. That's an interesting. Yeah. Go ahead. Excellent.
So I bought a couple cards and I was like, I really like this. I want to make the deck better. And then I kind of spiraled into the hole that is modern Merfolk, but that is another story for a different day. And so someone told me that there was an entire story behind magic, an entire like lore. And I was just like, excuse me, what? And then I found Wizards' really, really terrible database of old stories. And it's like navigating a maze with your eyes closed completely backwards. It's absolutely terrible. But if you can navigate it, all of the stories are there, except for War of the Spark, which is a crime. And I mean it also not being on the website, and also the novel is also a crime in itself. Wow. I think the Wildred quest, which is Aldrain, I believe the Theros story is not online either. Ikoria is not online either. But
so certain sets have really powerful stories, right?
Yes. So Ixalan was the first, like I read this story and I shotgun that thing in one night. And it moved me to tears. Like I was under the blankets with my phone like this, crying while I was reading the story. And I was like, oh my God, it's so sad. And after that,
that's not dramatization, everybody. I've seen her cry. That's how she switches her voice. She goes into that. That's how she cries.
Yes, dramatization all the way.
Yeah.
It was really moving. And from that point, like I started reading all of the stories behind Amonkhet, and I read Dominaria and so on and so forth. And it just got me hooked. And then I started like collecting cards that had to do with the story. And then there were certain things that I picked up that told a story within themselves. And that in itself is very beautiful. There's 2 cards that I want to show that illustrate that. Just chef's kiss. And
we do have to say chef's kiss too, because like, this is the thing people do now. I'm older. I don't like say chef's kiss. I just mwah. And then, but I've seen people. This is what we do. We say chef's kiss, which is just a newer thing, I guess. You're just more hip with the youngins. We're the same age. I'm not trying to say you're younger than me. I'm just saying you're just more hip with the youngins and what they do and stuff.
You have shown your ancient millennial bones. Very clear.
I'm an oldie millennial. Yes, I came along just at the time of the of the cassette player. Yeah.
Yes. So that's kind of what got me hooked.
Yeah,
And
that's awesome.
Ixalan's not my favorite set. War of the Spark is. But that's kind of
Oh.
how I started to get sucked in, and now I have more cards and I know what to do with.
Well, yeah, I mean that's definitely a thing we could talk about. What do you do with your extra cards? But that's so interesting because what you just sort of talked about was like there's art that underlies Magic. So I think it's sort of easy for people to get confused though, because I think that like, is there art that underlies Magic? Sure, right? There are books. There have been books that go back to even before the Great Mending and all the there's all kinds of books that go back, and I was drawn in by those too. I like the Onslaught series, and I have some cards that I'd love to talk about today too that are sort of related to that. But I think that the cards themselves are also just art. You know what I mean? Like it references something, but I think that the flavor text and the focus on the images themselves. But then it's the gray space that they leave in between, right? That like you can then find yourself going into that gray space going into that place. The trolls and goblins are working on our visuals right now. Thank you, Boogeyman Fox. We do know that the visuals are morphing. Yeah, it's okay.
That's weird. Can y'all still hear us?
Yeah, I think they can still hear.
Okay.
Ammo Freeman. I really enjoy that GIF that we got going on. We can take a moment. We can take a moment to just say thank you all so much for following and for viewing. This is incredible. We had our first follower tonight was Boogeyman Fox, right?
Yay, Boogeyman Fox!
Yay, Boogeyman Fox! Also, Actual Cat Lady, we appreciate you very much for following.
I mean, I'm here.
But also Darth Vash, thank you so much.
Yay, Darth!
The Optimator.
Yay, Optimator! I'm gonna do this for every person that follows.
You should do that.
Is that valid? Can I do
yes,
that?
you absolutely can. If I'm allowed to give you the power to do that, I give you the power to do that. Like that's all. That's what I'm about. That's giving people the power to do stuff. That's absolutely cool. It looks like our visuals are back up. So what was the card? Give us a card to start us off here, Andrea. Where would you start if you wanted to start us off with cards?
Let me find the card. There are two in particular. They go one right after another. It's from War of the Spark, and they're Spellgorger Weird and Spellkeeper Weird.
Sure.
And these two it's not just great art on the cards, but they both tell a story about each other. And like, I don't know who pointed this out to me. I guess I saw it at some point. So if you're not seeing this, you're just hearing it. It's 2 and a red for a 2/2 weird. And it says, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Spellgorger Weird. And there is like a little blue figure in the corner. And then the flavor text is, freed from their respective labs, the two weirds formed a partnership feeding on the arcane energies of war. Okay, let that marinate for a second. Actually, this is from M21, not War of the Spark. Oh, no, that's from War of the Spark. And then
could have been reprinted. We should make a note while that's marinating that this is not the podcast or video that you should come to get like accurate understandings of like when books came out or which set the card is supposed to be in or any of the exact mana costs for that mana ability. I mean, we love Magic the Gathering and these things are important, but rules lawyers we are not.
I mean, it is important to me that I get that right, but I will probably get it wrong more often than not. So
we try. We're not gonna make it up, but like the elemental there just kind of looks like a frog made of fire. And he's got like kind of like a, I don't know what is the thing in the center. Is that like his mouth or is that like a big eye?
I don't know. I just always saw it as like a big red mouth.
Okay, so it's like a big red mouth, like a fire frog. He's like a frog.
Like a fire frog. So the next card that matches this is Spellkeeper Weird. And this one is cool because it's kind of the inverse of this. So it's like, it looks like an ice blue sort of humanoid form, but in the background of this, in the same corner, as the previous card, is the fire like frog thing. And this one is 2 and a blue for a 1/4 weird creature, and you can pay 2, tap it to sacrifice it. Return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. And then the flavor text is, they worked well as a team, but they knew it couldn't last forever. So if you were to put these two side by side, and I know that our loose coalition of goblins and trolls may not be able to do that, but if you were to put them side by side, so the red card comes first in the story, and then the blue card comes next. And it's a story of one can't live while the other survives. So if you think about it, so the blue is the one that's having to sacrifice himself for the red. So you tap the Spellkeeper Weird, you return instant or sorcery from your graveyard to your hand. So you tap it and you sacrifice it. That's essentially destroying the creature. So it sacrifices itself so that the red one can live, the Spellgorger Weird.
Right.
So they worked well as a team, but they can't last together. And these two cards put side by side, they show that story. They show that beautiful microcosm of a story within a bigger story, and the art shows that happening together, and it's just the coolest thing. And
well, and so you've got a couple of layers there, right? The art depicts the same things, but it zeroes in on different pieces, right? You've got this fire frog guy that's like building in strength, and then inside the Spellkeeper Weird, which is like an ice thin man, right? Inside at the very center of it, you can see a scroll. There's a scroll in there. That's your instant or your sorcery, right?
Yes.
And so like right there, it's telling you what it is. But then mechanically, you're right. It's
also mechanically through gameplay is telling that story through mechanics, which is amazing. And if you go back to the Spellgorger Weird, because it gets even better, y'all. It gets better. Go back to the Spellgorger Weird. We're loose coalition of trolls and goblins. Okay. So if you
Cat Lady is very animated. I love it.
Oh my god.
Keep doing it.
So it says, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Spellgorger Weird. Well, that means whenever you cast an instant or a sorcery, Spellgorger Weird gets bigger. So in other words, if you pay 2 mana and sacrifice your Spellkeeper Weird to bring an instant or sorcery out of your graveyard, and then you cast it, the other half of that relationship can grow.
Right. And let's not forget that if you add in some black, you splash a little black to this deck, make it a Grixis deck, reanimate the blue one, and keep sacking it. You can just do this forever. You add a little bit of black, and I'm telling you, every deck gets better. It really is. It's an incredible.
The Is It Mage in me disagrees.
Well, that's fair, but I think that's a great point too, right? Is that these two cards it's not a one-off, right? This is the sort of core of the Is It mentality. And that's something that I think that Magic has been really good at over the last couple of years, is creating these lore around these different color combinations and these different sort of ideas of like, an Is It Mage is a cool idea. I mean, it's a mad scientist. We're taking the mad scientist, but we're taking the mad scientist and we're putting it in what traditionally is a sword and sorcery kind of game, right? But that flavor is that steampunk concept. And that inventor sort of the archetype is something that is like so welcome and so wonderful. And that's part of the reason that I think Magic is so cool, is that it sort of opens its arms wide to all of these different archetypes across science fiction and fantasy, and allows you to sort of write your own story. And you can say, here is this Spellgorger Weird, and here is this Spellkeeper Weird. How am I going to use them? What is the Is It Mage that I want to be be able to, what is the spell that Spellkeeper Weird is going to come back and get for me? And then how am I going to use?
Is someone in chat talking about connected art?
There is, yes. So 10th District Guard, Optimator's talking about 10th District Veteran, Battlefield Promotion, 10th District Legionnaire, Harvester of Souls, Soul of the Harvest, Artistic Connection. There's So thank you so much, Optimator. You're so right. There are
I
so many
love
of these
that. Speak snaps.
We're snapping because we used to be poets. In a previous life, we were poets, and
Yeah.
you snap when you hear someone say something really cool. So you can all take that away. It's your free piece of non-Magic the Gathering education for the day.
You're
poets,
welcome.
We snap at things. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. That's so cool. That's such a
oh my god, that is so cool. I'm gonna have to hunt those cards down in my collection and like put them all side by side because that's amazing. I love seeing that.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Yeah. So can I talk? I would love to talk about a different card. Not nearly as cool as yours. That was really good. I would love to talk about Future Sight for a second. So this is
yes. Let us go back in the day.
Talk about back in the day. Yeah. So you talked a little bit about how you got into Magic. I got into Magic way long time ago. Somebody brought me over to their house and was like, "You want to play this card game?" I was like, "Sure." And then they gave me a deck. And then they like just beat me down with it, and I had no fun, and I didn't play it for the rest of time. And that was the end of the story. And we don't have a podcast, and nothing ever happened. Except that's not the end of the story, thank God, because another friend of mine was like, "Oh, did you play with so and so at that game?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "That guy's a jerk. Do you want to like actually play Magic?" And I was like, "I do." So just like at the beginning of my story, before we even get into it, don't play with jerks, guys. Don't do it. Go to your local game store in a professional and in a safe way. Go to our Discord, go online, find non-jerks to play with, because
and they do exist.
Yeah, they do. They absolutely exist. And if the only people you're playing, if you're playing Magic and you're finding that you are having fun with the cards, but you're not having fun with the people, I give you permission. Find different people. It's okay. Yes. It's okay to do that. So anyway, I found good people, and they taught me about. They didn't tell me about the story. They were just like, here are some really cool cards. Here are some things. And they said, you're a planeswalker. And I said, what's that? And they said, well, you're able to travel between worlds and summon monsters to fight other people. And that was like that was the lore. That was it. And I was like, cool, I'm down with that. That's pretty great. So I came across things like Future Sight. Thank you so much for putting that up for me. They came across things like Future Sight, and I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. So what you've got is a man with like sort of like kind of like a rock star 80s looking dude with like long black hair, and like standing in this very strange scene and like holding his arm out, and his arm is like glowing blue. This is a blue card. A lot of good art in blue cards. You shouldn't in general play them because blue cards are bad, but it's good art, so we'll talk about it. So around him, he's got like a golden scepter in his hand that he later in other cards will like play like a guitar. So he's definitely like a rock star kind of. I was very into Bon Jovi when I was young. Okay, and I'm not apologizing for it. But
you should.
Around it, there are all of these images, and there's an image of like an angel, and there's an image of a person like enraged, and there's an image of like people standing on this parapet, and I was like, what is this? This is so cool. And so you look at the flavor text. One of the coolest things I think about Magic the Gathering cards, whenever I see a new Magic card come out, and I'm like, oh, I've heard this is a really good card, and I don't see flavor text, I get a little sad. Oh man, we used all of the text for like the cool game mechanic. I guess that's fine. But it's the flavor text, y'all. So this one is, my past holds only pain and loss. I will conquer it by creating the perfect future. That's Ixidor, the reality sculptor. First of all, go ahead.
The mechanics of the card match what
they do.
Imagine Future Sight would be.
You're ahead of me, yeah. So sticking just with the flavor text for a moment. That's awesome. I resonate with that. As a human being, I have pain and loss in my past. I've been to places, and the idea that I can conquer it by creating a perfect future, especially younger me, I was like, this is it. This is yes. Also, his title is Reality Sculptor, and I immediately knew what I wanted on my business card. You know what I mean? Like when I grow up, it should say Matthew Drightline Reality Sculptor. That should be the thing. But you're absolutely right, Andrea. The mechanics follow that, right? Play with the top card of your library revealed. It is an enchantment for 2 colorless and 3 blue, and you may play the top card of your library as though it were. So there's a lot of other blue cards that will create the same mechanic, so that you can top deck and have a lot more control over your deck. But I just was like totally drawn in by this one card. I was like, this is the coolest thing. Like, yeah, sure, Disintegrate allows me to like burn things and murder, or as a dark banishing way back in the day, is like cool. I can like banish someone to another realm. But this was so cool. So I found the books this was a part of, which is the Onslaught series. Kamal is trying to find this thing called the Mirari, which is this artifact of unknown power. But Ixidor is like a side character. He's not the main character. You're not going to find a whole book about him. You're not going to find anything. He's a side character. He was a pit fighter. Everybody else in the pit was summoning these giant monsters, and Ixidor was summoning illusions. So you had this whole scene where like someone was summoning this giant scorpion, and it would like kill Ixidor, and then he would like appear somewhere else in the pit and being like, "This is really boring, man. Can you just do something more interesting?" Scorpion would kill him again, and then he would show up somewhere else and be like, "I really don't think you get what's happening." He was tiring the other guy out so that he could then show up right behind him and just knock him unconscious. And so stuff happens in the book. He gets exiled. He goes into the desert, and he realizes that his illusions that he's focused on for years to get all the details right suddenly can become just real. And he just begins summoning things left and right. He ends up being a bad guy. I sort of have an affinity for bad guys in fantasy and science fiction. But he's a great character. He's a cool character. And I was drawn into that whole story and to the whole experience just by this card. And if that book hadn't been there, what's so cool about Magic is that I could have gotten together with my friends and I could have written that story. I could have decided that this is a story I want to write. These are characters I want to talk about. We can go to Mindbend, which is his another card that features Ixidor, and that will also show you some really cool art. Go ahead, Andrea. You had something.
I was going to say, I know we talked about this the other day before we go into this card, and this I've got something else to say about the art of the previous one too. But if you listen to the Magic the Gathering Drive to Work podcast that Mark Rosewater does, one of his in one of his episodes, he talks about how in Alpha they mention Urza and Mishra, but there's no story behind it. So they go back in later and they kind of finish the rest of that story. That kind of goes to your point where it's like, if they've mentioned characters but they don't have a story, we could just write one. And that's literally what they did when they first started. And they were like, okay, well, let's have these dudes. Okay, who are these dudes? I don't know. Okay, let's put a story to them. And thus the Weatherlight was born.
Yeah, right. Not one of my favorite stories, but an incredible one. Definitely something you can't ignore. Yeah, and you've got that ability. I'm going to come to Mindbend in a second. We've got it on screen. But I just very briefly, we can come back to this. That's what I did when I was young. I had a group of people. We all played together. We had our own little meta. And after we had been playing for years with like the same decks that were sort of evolving, we all had monocolored decks. That's where all of my narratives about being a black deck come from. I had a black deck in that meta. And we would like go to our local GameStop together, and we would pick cards for our decks, knowing that we were going to be playing each other. So we would like be like, no, you can't. That card is too power creepy. You can't put that in there. That's not okay. You are going to put that in. Okay, now I got to go find a counter to that. Now I got to go. And so then we would go home. We'd update our decks. We'd figure out what the mana counts were. We would do all that work, and then we would play. And after we had been doing it for a couple of years, we actually, some of us, not everybody, but some of us sat down and wrote a story about like, who were these planeswalkers that were interacting? What did the relative dominance of that, the green deck at the table right now mean? We got a new follow. Oh my! Look at that. Ribello is in
I did see that. Thanks for the
follow. Thank you so much for jumping on, sir. Good to see you. But yeah, so you have that opportunity. There's so much space in between these cards for you to put yourself. That's what's so incredible about.
Thanks for the follow, Josh.
Josh Gom, thank you so much. That's wonderful. Mindbend, I'm going to come back to this. This is a great sort of tie into what I was just saying about you can sort of make your own whatever you want. If you truly want to, you can make anything in Magic the Gathering. Mindbend is 1 blue. The text of it is, change the text of target permanent by replacing all instances of one color with another, or one basic land type with another. So if your creature has Swamp Walk and you want to have Island Walk, if you have something that targets red spells but you want it to target blue spells, you can literally shift anything you want. And the art is amazing. It's like a man in the bottom left-hand corner of it, and he's got like a jeweled sort of pendant around his
No. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Each of the I haven't looked at this piece of art very closely, but each of the colors in the pendant or whatever it is on his head are each of the colors of the color pie.
Well, yeah. Yes, that's correct. So in the bottom left-hand corner, there's a picture of a man. There's a side picture of a man, and then as it looks like what someone has done is they have just taken the back of his head and they've moved the painting, and they've smeared it with all 5 colors of Magic the Gathering, and then just above him actually is like an inverse of a man's face. You can see right above in the top left-hand corner is like it's literally like bending his mind. So
it's like a photo negative. If
exactly.
anybody remembers what those are.
Thank you. Photo negatives. And so, of course, the flavor text, again from Ixodor, one of my favorites. The world, I've come to realize, is a blank canvas on which to paint. I mean, I put that on a t-shirt. Like, that's amazing. Like, that's such a cool, I want to wake up every morning and I want to tell myself that. Like, I want to just let that marinate, a canvas on which to paint. Like, that's just such an incredible thing. So it's not just the art. It's not just the flavor profile. It's not just the mechanic. It's all of them working together, I think.
Mm-hmm. And I think somewhat like you can, I don't want to say like the quality of a really good Magic card is one that works mechanically, but also has the art and the story that all kind of make it one beautiful piece. I feel like I can't say that, though, because I'm sure that's not true for a whole crap load of cards. And there's a crap load of cards that are very good. So I don't want to, like, paint everything with the same brush. See what I did?
I like what you did. I like
yeah.
We should also make sure when we're talking about Ixodor that we, Optimator referenced Akroma. This is one of the cool things that is great. Akroma's Vengeance is one of the cards I wanted to talk about, is that characters are not bound to particular, colors. So like if you're thinking about yourself as a planeswalker, you don't just have to be a black deck or a blue deck or a Grixis or an Izzet or whatever. Although those are all good choices. You can have different. You can go across to different things. So if the goblins and trolls could bring up Akroma's Vengeance, go ahead. You're good.
Well, while the goblins and trolls are working on it, I mean that makes complete sense because there are planeswalkers that. Through the stories, they have different colors. They change into different. I mean, I don't want to say they change in different colors, but for example, typically a Johnny is a white planeswalker, but I think it's like a Johnny Greathearted or something is a green and white planeswalker, and a Johnny Vengeant is a red and white planeswalker. So as the story goes on, it's like I haven't read the story from Shards of Alara. This isn't a Johnny from Shards of Alara. He's from Bant, isn't he? I think.
Those sound right. Those sound right.
So like I don't know like what his story path is, but I can kind of tell that at some point he started off, white and good, and then at some point he got pissed, and then from there he was like, okay, well, I'm not so mad anymore, but I'm not as pure as completely white magic.
Sure, yeah, and I think that's there's a lot of really cool like personality quizzes out there that will like sort of talk about how like white isn't just good and black isn't just bad, and it allows you to be a multidimensional person. I think anything that allows you to be a multidimensional person in 2020 is a good thing. I think we get slotted into these extremes, and I think we all have shades of blue, and we shouldn't be ashamed of it. We shouldn't be ashamed. Akroma's Vengeance is up for us right now. This is a great card. There's a lot of
flavor text. Oh my god.
Yeah, the flavor text here is Ixodor had only to imagine their ruin, and Akroma made it so. In the story, he creates an angel called Akroma, who just becomes quite a problem for the continent, at the very least. But Magic is big on angel cards. They love angels. They love angels with weapons. This is a thing that it sells a lot. It sells cards, and let's just be honest about that. But also, it's just cool to see this character showing up in different areas. And what I really love about this card, so what it does, it's a 4 colorless, 2 white to destroy all artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. So a bit of an expensive board wipe, but a comprehensive board wipe.
I was gonna say this is a really expensive board wipe. Like
what? But you're getting all the things, right? You're getting the only thing left is land. And anyone that destroys land is
heartless
person.
Yes.
Yes.
You shouldn't be friends with that person.
Well, I don't know about that, but I mean, you probably should play backgammon and not chess and not Magic with them. But cycling is cool here because cycling allows you to discard this card and draw another. So again, we're thinking about Ixidor's imaginings. We're thinking about the things he's thinking about, and he can sort of decide not to. Yes, Optimator's in the chat saying, is that Sword of Vengeance in Akroma's hand? Sword of Vengeance is also a Magic card, and you can see that they are depicted the same across these two printings, which is wonderful. Yeah, we got people in the chat commenting about that as well. But I love the cycling here because it comes back to this idea that Ixidor is just imagining things, and you can sort of choose to imagine that thing and then not do it. You can say, no, you know what? I don't want a board wipe right now. I want a black 5/5 demon creature, because that's what you should always be sending.
And I feel like I should point out, and I don't know how many people don't know this, but your library is kind of, it is meant to symbolize your memories and your thoughts.
Yep.
Your hand is like your conscious thought that you've got right now, and your graveyard is your past, your memories.
Sure.
And exile, which is why, I guess, I don't know.
Well, yeah, which is why milling, right? If I choose to mill your deck, that is so often depicted as me driving you insane, right? Yes. I'm going into your mind and I'm removing things from it. You don't have the ability, you don't remember how to cast these things anymore.
Right. Because they don't exist in your library, thus you cannot cast them. It's brilliant.
It is.
And the card that milling is based off of Millstone. Millstone? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's like that sort of constant grinding would drive you mad. And it's, sorry, another different story for a different day, but it's still
okay. That's okay. In the chat, my chat just flickered away. I can't quite see it. It'll come back. My monitor's having issues. But yeah, these are some of the cards that drew me in originally, and some of the stories that made me really want to play. And again, I think if you can develop that right meta, that right set of people that you're consistently playing with, you can go very deep on the creative side of this game. There's a lot of people out there that make EDH decks, for instance, and they'll make competitive EDH decks that on turn 3 will like cycle through their entire deck to find the thing that does 70 damage. And like, God bless those people for doing that. That's an incredible way to play Magic. It's very mechanics focused. I'm just the other guy at the table. I think the fact that I think building an Ixidor deck that is white-blue, that includes some Akromas and things like that in there, would be beautiful and wonderful. And yeah, we do have. Oh, my chat is back here.
Because I can't see anything.
Yeah. No, I appreciate Ribello is saying that he feels much better about being a jerk blue-black player now. Probably because we're explaining what mill does.
And so how it
drives people crazy.
Drives you mad.
So I mean, I think what are some other players that you feel like, because we're sort of talking about players at the table. What are some other players that you find at the table, Andrea? I know that this is a little bit far afield of Magic. I think it's a worthwhile conversation.
How do you mean? Like, what other kinds of
Yeah, what other kinds of players do you feel like are out there?
The kind. Well, I was gonna say the kind that tools their deck to beat you, but only without. But you already mentioned that, and I think I mean that in the way of the kind of player that like tools their deck to beat you without your knowledge, so you have no way to counter it. Or the kind of player that packs their deck full of red goblins and just decides to build a giant meat curtain, and I stand by what I said just there, and just throws these goblins, these horde of goblins at your face, which again is kind of a story in itself because, for example, my husband, Nibbles, he runs Cranko. Cranko, I can't remember the full name of the card, but it's the one where you tap it and it doubles the amount of goblins. Cranko Mob Boss.
There it is.
Yeah. So like he's the head. He's like the head of like a goblin mob, and if he can just call up multiple hordes of idiot goblins at his beck and call, and his shtick in your mono red goblin deck is just to keep pulling these goblins out of nowhere, it creates that really hilarious story.
Sure, sure. Also, it should be said that, well, it should be said that you built him that deck. First of all, you
I
started
did.
him off. You did. So there's
I
no,
did.
you have no
And
legs
I
to stand
hate
on.
myself for it every day.
Well, don't hate yourself for it. But it also should be said that in the tech rehearsal for this particular episode, we were talking about how goblins think what you want of them. It is impossible to find a goblin
yes.
card that has flavor text that you don't like laugh out loud at. And I like tried to prove Andrea wrong. I went to Scryfall and like looked up like 10 random goblin cards. And I was just laughing out loud the whole time. Like there's just like
I threw down the motion that that you cannot find a goblin card that does not have hilarious flavor text.
I mean, we have very smart people in the chat right now, so this might be the moment where we get proved wrong.
This might be the moment where I get proven wrong. But like, there's one card called Goblin Piker, and I think the flavor text is one seed figured out which end was the pointy end, they promoted him. Or like, I think
once he'd worked out which end of the thing was sharp, he was promptly promoted to guard duty.
There you go. There's another card where like you create a token that's a rock and it's like Goblin Weaponsmith or something, and like whenever you put it on the field or whatever you do with it, it like creates a rock token, which is just so funny. It's just, oh my god.
Optimator is one of the ones that comes to mind is I've been all over this world. I even remember some of the places.
Yes. I'm telling you, they're all hilarious.
Well, and that's a great way to balance sort of like the art conversation, right? Is that art doesn't necessarily always have to be super serious and super cerebral. It can also just be something that is engaging, that like makes you laugh. And what a gift to be able to have, goblins with our merfolk. What a, we have these. And we have these beautiful, breathtaking pieces of art, but then we also have these things that make us laugh.
Another really good piece that's just hilarious is also a red card, and it's Charging Monstrosaur. And I think the flavor text on it is, "We should have stayed with the boat. Always stay with the boat." And it's like a giant T-Rex chasing down these people. It's absolutely hilarious. And I put it in as many red decks as I can because it's just so funny.
Sure. Yeah, there was a whole set that was like just focused on like, what if we just had dinosaurs? What if
that would be Ixalan.
Yeah, just incredible.
That was Ixalan.
Just an incredible concept. It's, the last card that I wanted to talk about today is something that is breathtaking from an art perspective. I am going to come back there. We can talk about the levity as much as we want, but like I'm the guy that wants to like get the gorgeous playmat, that like if my partner would let me, I would put magic art all up in my house as art. Song of Creation is the card that I'm talking about.
That's gorgeous.
Which, if you have not seen, is just incredible. It's Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That's just the art. Our loose coalition of goblins and trolls has put down just the art for you. How to describe this, Andrea? How would you describe this to the people that are just listening to us and can't see?
I would imagine that this is what the creation of the mountains meeting the sea looks like.
Wow. Okay. I love that. Tell me more. Well, because to be a bit descriptive, here we've got a person in the center with long hair. Gender is a construct, but you could assume that she's a woman. I'm not going to do that. So we've got a person with longer hair in the center here, sort of like extending their arms. And all around this person are hues of yellow and blue and green and these watercolors that are just feeding into each other and like blending in as though creation itself, as though the setting itself is just paint for them to reach out and smear. Comes back to Ixidor in a really interesting way without actually referencing Ixidor, but just a breathtaking card. It reminds me of some of the stuff that artists can do now with Photoshop that would be difficult to do with like actual paint, but that you can do with like rendering software. I don't know if that's how this image was created.
I feel like you could do this with paint.
Well, there you go. I'm less of a paint person.
Granted, I feel like most art that is produced for Magic cards nowadays is done digitally. I could stand corrected here, but I feel like most of it's done digitally. I've seen some that are done digitally. But anyway, yes. Yes.
Chad is calling this watercolor Azorius propaganda. If Azorius was a church, which is wonderful.
Wow, I need a T-shirt that says that. Oh my God, who said that in chat? You win.
Oh, said it in chat. So
you win. I don't know what that prize is.
Oh, interesting. Optimator is saying a lot of magic art is hand drawn but digitally colored. That's fantastic.
Oh,
That's a
okay.
cool,
I love
that's a cool
that.
thing. That's a cool thing. So if our loose coalition could bring up the actual card, I'd love to describe it to our viewers. But it's such a wonderful piece of art that I think this is the kind of stuff that you look at that and you say, like, this is the thing play mats I think were made for. Is like I want to unroll that and I want to play on that with my background.
Like, I wish I had a copy of Force of Will, because I have a playmat that is just that card backdrop, and it's like a fire blast coming towards this young woman. Again, gender construct. But she's like, okay.
Keep describing it for our podcast, though. Keep describing
it. Well, the version of the art that I'm describing is not this particular piece, but also kind of goes to show you that, you know, multiple different points of view on even a phrase can turn out gorgeous things.
Yeah, absolutely. We should call out specifically. We haven't done a great job of doing this the whole time. We should call out specifically Noah Bradley and Scott M. Fisher, which are the artists for Song of Creation and this particular version of Force of Will. In this particular Force of Will version, we have a person in the center with like an blue armor on, and they're like hanging on to the top of a ship, like a pirate, old pirate ship of some kind, and there are like streams of water and streams of fire just arcing all around, and you can see in the background of the picture that the arcs of fire are like exploding, like someone is attacking this ship with fire, and this person in the center is just sort of like throwing like a curve of water to intercept the fire before it hits them. And what's I think particularly powerful about it is that the person is not looking at what they're doing. They are just casually, just haphazardly being like, oh, no, that's not going to hit me.
While also avoiding a streak of fire that's going precariously between their legs.
That's also true. I had never noticed that, but this is a close call on two accounts for this particular human.
This person is playing with fire, if you will.
I love it. I love it.
Who would like to hear with the pun? Oh my God, it's disgusting.
Great. It's wonderful. I would love
yes,
that. Thank you.
Would be thank you, Loose Coalition of Goblins and Trolls.
Here we go.
This is also a Force of Will, and it's stunning.
Tell us about it. Tell us with words.
It's a young woman, again, gender being a construct, and she's got her arms kind of behind her. I can't quite describe it. The arms are behind her, and there's like a blast of fire coming at her, and she's deflecting it like an invisible shield would.
And they're calm, and they're just like at peace, and they're like, this is totally okay. Just in the same way that blue mages are always infuriatingly at peace and calm while the world is exploding around them.
And she does not have fire coming precariously close to her lady bits.
Yes. Tons of love in the chat for Seb McKinnon.
Oh my God, Seb McKinnon.
For some also little funnier versions of playmats, Bender wearing a pharaoh hat while pontificating. Shout out to Futurama and all my Futurama peeps. That is a great show. You should spend your life watching it. Back in the early 2000s, there was a like continuous 24-hour loop of every episode of Futurama playing back to back with no commercials, just infinitely. And I have spent more of my life than I will admit with that on in the background, just playing. So thank you for that.
No judgments.
I love me some Futurama.
I should also mention that the art behind me is of my favorite character, Vraska. And those of you that have played me on Arena, you know that my avatar is Vraska. And this particular piece was done by Livia Prima. I don't know how you pronounce her name exactly. But this is like one of my favorite pieces.
Well, you also love Vraska. You should talk a little bit about your love of Vraska.
I do.
Go ahead.
So, Vraska is a misunderstood character. She was born on Ravnica, and her people were tortured and imprisoned. And when she escaped from her captors, she was basically like, "Fuck this! I'm never going to let this happen to me or any of my people ever again," and kind of
Oh,
became an assassin for hire.
yeah, that's
Um,
great. That's great. I
and
forget that about Fresca. I forget the
yeah,
whole origin story. Yeah.
yeah. So the one thing she truly, truly wanted was to be able to bring her people back to like their proper place. Oh, sorry. I've just been told by the goblins and troll coalition that I should go easy on the swearing, which is hard for me. G-rated in chat. Oh God, I'm so sorry. Anyway, so she was like, I'm done with this. So she was like, I'm done with this, I'm going to essentially be an assassin for hire. And then at some point she runs into Nicol Bolas, and this is where the Ixalan story starts, right? And he's basically like, I will restore you to a place of prominence and power within your people on Ravnica if you just go do this one thing for me, by the way. And here's this crazy compass that I'm going to help you do that. But P.S. you don't know how to read it yet because I'm Nicol Bolas and I'm not going to give you anything. So he gives her a ship and he tells her to go to Ixalan to grab this. It's called the Immortal Sun, which those of you who have read War of the Spark story, and I'm very sorry if you have, because Greg
So much
Weisman,
hate.
I
So
hate
much
you
hate.
so much. He kills the
Wow.
story. But anyway,
Wow.
the Immortal Sun is what brings all of the Planeswalkers to Ravnica and keeps them there and stops them from leaving. But so she gets the Immortal Sun, brings it to Nicol Bolas, and then after that he makes her the head of the Golgari Queen, and that's what this is. And
Just
in this particular piece, she is holding that compass, which is called the thematic compass. Jace like holds it, and he's like, "Oh, this is how you read it." But she's holding that compass in the art, so that's one of the things I love about that piece.
so you gravitate to like misunderstood characters, and I gravitate to villains. Is that what I'm hearing? Is that what I'm hearing?
Fair,
That's
yes,
good.
I
Yeah.
hear
Okay.
that.
That's
I
good
mean,
to hear.
I am a black player at heart, but I'm the kind of player that's not evil. I just believe that you should use all of your resources,
Including your life total.
including your life total
You
and
should.
other people.
And other people's. Yeah,
Yes.
that's the thing. Everyone just you have to use all your resources. That's very true.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I think
Um,
Vraska is a wonderful. I love that we took the time to humanize a Gorgon, right? Like
oh yeah,
like we
definitely.
like we.
And one of the best lines in the Ixalan story is like one of the moments is where Jace and Vraska have historically been like bitter enemies. He falls
Didn't
in
they
love
have an
with him.
on and on?
Yes.
Wasn't it an on and off again? They
Yes.
love hate kind of a
Mm-hmm.
situation. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
they fall in love, and it's because this sounds really cheesy, and I'm very sorry, but give me a moment here.
Yeah.
But he forgets everything he ever knew about her,
Oh
and
yeah.
she's like very like taken aback because she's like,
Yeah.
okay,
Induced
why are
amnesia, right?
you? Yeah, he has induced or no, that's a different part of the story.
Oh my bad.
Uh, um, where am I going with this? But like he's like looking at her while he's working on her ship, and he's like, it occurred to him that she was very beautiful, and an enemy can look at an adversary in a different way, and in a certain gain a better understanding and yes, deeper understanding, and realize that that person isn't the person that you thought they were. When I was reading the Ixalan story, the part that brought me to tears was actually depicted on the card Flood of Recollection, which is essentially it's the art is Jace, like he something happens to him. I think he falls down a waterfall, and when he lands, like all of his memories come flooding back. And Jace has a really messed up past in that his memory has been erased at least 3 or 4 times.
God bless Waterfalls, just like giving that back to her. Well done. Well done, Waterfalls.
But the way that it comes back is described in such a painful and visceral way. Like Vraska's watching this and she's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And there's nothing she can do about it. She just has to sit there and watch this painful event happen.
So she's witnessing it, kind of like we're witnessing it when we're looking at the card.
Exactly.
Blood of Recollection, by the way, is 2 blue, sorcery, return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand, and then exile Flood of Recollection, so you can't like do it endlessly. The flavor text is exactly what you talked about. Jace tumbled down the waterfall and plunged deep into his past. And in the art, you've got this dude, this person right in the center, like clutching their head, and then like images of them, ghostly apparitions of them, all around them, swirling and sort of reaching out and glowering and grimacing and looking off. I think actually Nissa's there in the background. You can see the elf ears. And I think you might have Liliana Vess in there in the back as well. But yeah,
right? This is a scene of. Oh my God. Okay. So at the end of Hour of Devastation, which is the end of Amonkhet block, Jace, Nissa, Liliana, Gideon, and Chandra all get their butts handed to them. Like they get completely annihilated. And Nicol Bolas like basically wipes Jace's memory and like exile, or Jace like inadvertently planeswalks to some random place, and that happens to be Ixalan. And I bet you that the intention behind this art in the background is that last thing that he remembered from when they got completely annihilated and destroyed on Amonkhet. Because like that's the last thing that he probably remembers before being sent to Ixalan. Oh my God, I'm sorry, I'm obsessed.
No, that's okay. I mean, it's okay to be obsessed with Magic the Gathering. I think that's
all of
that's
the things y'all probably didn't want to know.
No, I think that's
this
great.
Story and the art associated.
I think again, there's depth to all of these pieces, and it doesn't have to be super in depth. It can just be funny goblins, but it also has these really in depth moments that. Give us the space to be people and to be cool planeswalkers and build a deck.
I mean,
well, this has been a blast. This has been fun. We are well into an hour and 42 minutes of streaming. I think like 40 of those minutes though was like us ramping and saying
and technical difficulties, and
I'm a little bit of that.
I really feel bad about that.
No, it's the first episode. We'll figure it out. Got it. Thank you. 46 minutes was prep. Our Loose Coalition is telling us. So thank you everybody so much for being with us.
Before you
go ahead.
Did you have anything else you wanted to add about this discussion?
About Jace? Jace is cool.
No, I mean like art. Did you have another card you wanted to talk about?
I have so many. No, the last card I wanted to talk about was Song of Creation. Song of Creation was my end one because it just takes me away.
I mean, it's a beautiful, breathtaking card. Is it from Kaldheim? I think it is.
These are the things that I should know if I was going to have a podcast about Magic the Gathering. It could be. It could be.
Does anyone in the chat know? I'm sure someone knows, or we'll find out.
I can pull it up here. Here we go. So it's it's Ikoria, Layer of Behemoths.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it came out in Ikoria. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Which was a great set. I loved the mutate ability.
The mutate mechanic is disgusting.
Great. It was great. A lot of great commanders too. A lot of great commanders.
Yes, a lot.
No, but I'm set, man. I could come up with 50 more cards that our tech team is not ready for.
I could. And I have, because here is the list of cards. So, can I give a bit of a teaser?
You can give as many teasers as you want to, as long as we make sure that this is still not an adult channel. We have to keep it G. That's all.
Oh yeah, definitely G.
Yeah.
Some of the other topics that we wanted to talk about in the future episodes, if this does continue to be an episodic thing, one is if all of the colors of Magic showed up to a PTA meeting.
Oh yeah.
What would they be?
Right.
And then another one was some of the books of Magic is there too much magic? And
there is. Spoiler, there is.
There is. Spoiler,
too much.
There is. And then yeah, I kind of want to go into it, but that would defeat the purpose of a teaser. And then there was a Drive to Work podcast that Mark Rosewater did, where he and some other guy talked about the most influential magic sets. And ironically, the other guy's name also was Matt. So I guess I get to play Mark Rosewater, which is fun.
That's fun. That's
and fun fact, also, I don't agree with a lot of their picks, which is also funny.
I have thoughts. They're nuanced. I wouldn't say that I don't agree as much as I wouldn't have said any of those words. You know,
I realize I'm on frame. I can't get my chair to rotate properly. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine. Yeah, I mean, you're doing okay. We also have a segment that we're still trying to figure out called I'd Tap That. Fun activated abilities on creatures that you would use.
Oh, yes.
Which I think would be great. We also like to talk at length about why Arena sucks, because it does. But it's a great way to like find people in play. There's just so buggy. It's so buggy. Anyway, go ahead.
I was gonna say that's again a different story for a different day. I can't. Shouldn't go into it because then we'd be here all night for another hour. Talking about,
indeed. Well, this has been. I've had a blast. Have you had a blast, Andrea?
I have had a blast. I did not. It's not as nerve-wracking as I thought it would be. Although the anticipation for the first hour, anticipation kind of killed me for the first. Yeah. I too watched Rocky Horror. So like the build up to it was just like really sort of, and then the technical difficulties sort of like gave me heart palpitations a little bit. I do have a shameless plug before we wrap up. So in our Discord, or not, I want to say our Discord. Sorry, I'm trying to get in the frame here, and I'm having a hard time with it. I apologize. So in our Discord, and when I say our Discord, I mean the one which a lot of you are currently from, which is the one that was created by Flea42, who it's a Discord that we all follow Dev from SBMTG Magic. And the shameless plug is that right now we're trying to do a fundraiser for Dev. And we created a shirt design, and I made the fundraiser today. And he's been having a really craptacular, like, last year. If you go to his channel, the most recent video kind of explains how he was in the hospital. So we thought it would be nice to do a fundraiser. And all the proceeds are going to go to him. I don't think he knows about it yet because I haven't been able to get a hold of him or his wife, but I'm trying. So hopefully we can have some shirts be purchased, and
definitely check out his videos. Definitely like and subscribe.
They're great.
Things. I would also give a shout out if you haven't seen any of the new Spice 8 Rack stuff. It's all just great. More to the point that there's too much magic. He's still on Adventures in the Forgotten Realms stuff, which is 2 sets ago. 2 sets ago,
and Kamigawa is coming out, and I'm just like, oh my god, this is too much. I can't.
You know what I mean?
I see what you did there. We're here for the puns, y'all. We're here for the puns.
I'm so glad everybody heard that, because that's getting cut. We're not using that.
It's not getting cut if I have anything to say about it.
Anyway, y'all, this has been a blast. I've really enjoyed myself. I'm glad y'all could all come and hang out.
We got to figure out how we want to sign off. But in the meantime, I've been Andrea. That's been Matt.
That's been me.
Stay safe in those blind eternities.
Thank you, Alpha. That is, stay safe in the blind eternities. That was what we were going to say. Stay safe in the blind eternities, guys. Well done. Well done.
Yes. So, have a good night, y'all.
Good night.
Or morning, whenever you see this or hear this.